98% of Amazon's 1,000 biggest cloud customers have already switched, not to Nvidia, to a chip Amazon built itself. Amazon has been designing its own silicon in secret for over a decade. That chip business now generates $20 billion a year. Amazon is also Nvidia's single biggest customer. The same company sending Nvidia billions every year is building the chip designed to make Nvidia unnecessary. In April 2026, Amazon CEO Jassy published his annual letter to shareholders. One line near the middle of that letter stopped me. I went back and read it 3 times. He wrote that Amazon's chip business, if sold externally the way Nvidia sells chips, would be worth $50 billion a year. Amazon does not sell a single chip publicly. That $50 billion exists only inside Amazon's walls. Jassy wrote 1 sentence about it and moved on. Almost nobody noticed. I know some of you were taught that Nvidia owns AI chips. I was too. Nvidia makes the hardware. Everyone else buys it. That has been the story for most of the last decade. But something changed inside Amazon around 2015. Most of the industry has not caught up with what that means. Think of it like a restaurant. It spends its first 10 years buying all its ingredients from a single supplier. The supplier sets the price. The restaurant pays it. Then one day the restaurant builds its own farm. Same ingredients, a fraction of the cost. The restaurant keeps every dollar it saves. The supplier that used to get paid now gets nothing. That is what Amazon did with chips. Amazon has 3. The first is called Graviton. It handles general computing, the work that runs every time you use an app, load a website, or stream a video. Before Graviton, Amazon bought Intel processors for this work. Graviton replaced them. Today, 98% of Amazon's 1,000 biggest cloud customers run on Graviton. Intel barely gets a mention in the shareholder letter. If you use any app that runs on AWS, Graviton is already running underneath your data. That covers most of the apps on your phone. You have been on Amazon's chip for years without knowing it. That switch happened, quietly, without a press release that made any front page. The second chip is called Trainium. This is the one that goes directly at Nvidia. Trainium handles AI training. Think of AI training like a gym. The model does millions of reps, over and over, until it can recognize a pattern in language, an image, or a voice. The equipment it uses for those reps is the chip. Nvidia's H100 is the premium gym. Trainium 2 delivers the same workout at roughly 30% lower cost. Are you with me? Same output, 30% cheaper. Trainium 2 is currently sold out. Not back-ordered, sold out. The demand for a chip competing with Nvidia's flagship is already outrunning Amazon's ability to supply it. Trainium 3 began shipping in early 2026. It is 30 to 40% more powerful than Trainium 2, already nearly fully subscribed. The third type is called Nitro. It handles security and networking at the infrastructure level. You will never see it in a product launch. It is why AWS runs workloads faster and cheaper than a general-purpose server. It runs invisibly under everything else. Now here's the part that changes how you read the $20 billion number. None of these chips are for sale. Not to you. Not to any AI startup trying to cut its Nvidia bill. Not to a competitor who wants the same price advantage. Amazon is the only customer. The savings goes directly into Amazon's margin. Some gets passed to AWS customers through lower pricing. None of it passes through a market that Nvidia can see or respond to. $20 billion. That is more than Intel earns from its entire data center chip division in a year. Amazon built a business that size inside its own walls, serving only itself. It has never once competed with Nvidia on a public market. Jassy put a number on it in the letter. If Amazon sold these chips on the open market, the way Nvidia sells GPUs, the business would be worth $50 billion a year. He wrote that once. In a letter, most people skimmed for the AI revenue headline, then moved to the next paragraph. The $50 billion business that does not publicly exist. Disclosed in one sentence, page 7, of a letter most people read for the headline. If you own Nvidia directly, that is the question worth sitting with. Not whether Nvidia's chips are better, whether the largest buyer in the world has been quietly building the alternative for a decade, inside a system Nvidia cannot access or price against. If this breakdown is useful, hit like and subscribe. I go this deep every week. The chips are not a side project. They are the foundation of the largest single-year technology spent in corporate history. On April 9, 2026, Amazon disclosed its AI revenue for the first time, $15 billion a year. The market reacted well. The stock went up 5% on the day. Analysts call it a bull's dream. But the same letter contains another number, the one that tells you what producing 15 billion actually costs. That number is 200 billion. Amazon is spending $200 billion in 2026 on AI infrastructure. Data centers, chips, power, networking, $200 billion. That is more than the entire annual GDP of Hungary, committed in a single year, to a single technology bet. Jassy's exact words, "We are not investing approximately $200 billion in CapEx in 2026 on a hunch." I want to be clear about something. That spending is not coming from a position of dominance. It is coming from a position of defense that looks like confidence from the outside. Azure, Microsoft's cloud business, is growing its AI revenue at 39% a year. AWS is growing at 17 to 20%. Azure is growing at more than twice Amazon's speed in the exact segment Amazon is betting $200 billion on. AWS has the largest cloud market share overall, but in AI specifically, the race has been moving away from it. Microsoft locked in OpenAI. That partnership gave Azure exclusive access to the most recognized AI product in the world. AWS does not have that. What AWS has instead is Anthropic. Amazon has invested $33 billion in Anthropic, the company that built Claude. $33 billion. That is close to the entire market cap of Zoom. Claude runs inside Bedrock, Amazon's AI platform. 100,000 companies use Bedrock. Claude is the reason most of them are there. But Claude also runs on Azure and on Google Cloud. Amazon spent $33 billion on a competitive advantage it does not hold exclusively. I'm going to do a full video on Anthropic, what that company is actually building, what sits underneath the $33 billion number, why the relationship between Anthropic and Amazon is more complicated than it looks. Watch for that one. What the $200 billion buys Amazon is not a front-end AI product. It is infrastructure no other cloud provider can replicate at the same cost. Because no other cloud provider builds its own chips. Every other company buying Nvidia GPUs pays the open market rate. Amazon pays its own cost. That gap, compounded over years of AI workload growth, is the actual bet underneath the number. That answers what the $200 billion is for. But it raises a different question. Whether companies are choosing Amazon because the AI is the best or because the chips make it the cheapest. The same logic runs through the satellite business. Since November 2025, Amazon's satellite internet project is no longer called Project Kuiper. It is called Amazon Leo. That rename matters. Kuiper was a project. Leo is a product. I covered the full Leo versus Starlink story in my last video, the FCC deadline, the $11.6 billion global star acquisition, what Delta Airlines choosing Leo over Starlink actually means. Link in the description. Watch that one first if you have not seen it. What connects to this video is the through line. Amazon Leo is designed to pipe directly into AWS, not primarily as a broadband product for consumers. as infrastructure. Enterprise customers on Leo get a direct feed into Amazon's storage, computing, and AI services. The satellite is not the product. Access to everything the chips and data centers run is the product. The same full-stack logic. SpaceX currently launches Amazon's Leo satellites. Elon Musk's rockets carry Amazon's hardware into orbit. The company Amazon is chasing in satellite internet is the company it is paying to get there. The competitor is on the launch pad, collecting Amazon's check. Blue Origin's New Glenn rocket landed its booster for the first time on a reused flight. That was April 2026. Jeff Bezos' on-launch vehicle reaching the reuse milestone that changes the economics. When New Glenn reaches Falcon 9's launch cadence, that dynamic shifts. There is a full video coming on what that means for launch costs and what it does to Starlink's structural advantage. Watch for it. None of this story gets told without a choice. Jassy chose what to say and what to leave out. On October 30th, 2025, Amazon announced it was cutting 14,000 jobs, one of the largest white-collar layoffs in tech last year. Jassy got on the earnings call that evening and was asked to explain. He said this: "The announcement that we made a few days ago was not really financially driven, and it is not even really AI driven. Not right now, at least. It really is the culture. When that happens, sometimes without realizing it, you can weaken the ownership of the people who are doing the actual work." I want to be fair here. That is not a cover story. That is a CEO saying on a recorded call that his own leadership team let the company slow down. Without noticing, he named the mistake. He named himself as the part of the team that made it. 6 months after that call, he published a 14,000-word letter. He committed $200 billion to a future he said his company had almost stopped being fast enough to reach. Imagine you are Jassy on the morning that letter goes out, April 9, 2026. You have just disclosed the AI revenue number for the first time in the company's history. You have committed publicly to the largest single-year technology spend any company has ever announced. You have told your shareholders in writing that you are not doing this on a hunch. And the metric that would tell investors whether any of it is working? Not in the letter. The breakdown of where the 15 billion comes from, which models, which customers, what the margin looks like, none of it. The 15 billion is a real number, but it is one number without the context needed to evaluate it. Bedrock's specific revenue is described only as multi-billion. How many of those 100,000 customers are paying versus trailing is not disclosed. The payback timeline for 200 billion in capex is described as a couple of years. No year, no revenue threshold, no metric. Some of you are already forming the thought. Every public company manages its disclosures. That is true, and I'm not saying this is evidence of anything improper. What I'm saying is this. Amazon disclosed the 15 billion for the first time in April 2026. Inside a letter written to defend a $200 billion spending decision. One already facing public skepticism. A metric released at the moment it supports your argument is not the same as a metric released to give you the full picture. I want to hear from you. Does a $15 billion AI disclosure alongside a $200 billion spending commitment read like a company that is winning? Or does it read like something else? Tell me in the comments. When I finished reading that letter, I did not think about the trade. I thought about the number I could not find. Whether the 15 billion is growing because the chips are winning, or because Anthropic is carrying the AI revenue while Amazon builds the infrastructure around it. Those are two different stories. Only one of them belongs to Amazon long term. 3 things I'm watching from here. Trainium 3 adoption outside Amazon. If enterprise customers start moving AI workloads from Nvidia to Trainium 3 at scale, that is the first signal visible to the market that Amazon's chip bet is winning on neutral ground, not just inside its own walls. The bedrock revenue breakdown. Amazon has never disclosed how much of the 15 billion comes from cloud versus its own models. When that number surfaces, it tells you something specific. Whether this is Amazon's AI business or Anthropic's AI business running on Amazon's infrastructure. Amazon Leo's first subscriber count. When Amazon publishes paying Leo customers, place it next to Starlink's 10 million. The gap between those two numbers will tell you how much of the satellite story is still a bet, and how much has become a business. Amazon built a chip that 98% of its biggest customers have already switched to, built it in silence, over a decade, disclosed what it would be worth in one sentence, page 7 of a letter most people read for the headline. The decisions that shaped this story were made years before most people knew the story existed. When those numbers come out, the real bedrock breakdown, the real Trainium adoption data outside Amazon's wall, the first Leo subscriber count, the question will be simple. Was the company you assumed was just a cloud provider already the competition you were never watching for? If this breakdown is useful, hit like and subscribe. I go this deep every week.